All right, kiddos, we're going to do a very quick video lecture on the articles of the Constitution. I'm going to do this in less than 10 minutes. You have to have these memorized. You have to know what is in all of these articles. As we get on down through the chapters and through the semester, the next month or so, you're going to get to know lots of details. But this is, again, kind of a big old overview, so you need to understand the basics, at least for the next quiz coming up, about what's in these articles. There's only 7 of them, so this isn't hard to do. You see on my PowerPoint slide, let's eat jelly fritters and sugar rolls. This is an acronym that I use to remember the various details that are in each of these 7 articles. So the L, you'll find out, is about Article 1, which is about the legislative branch, and so on and so forth. Come up with your own acronym. Mine's weird. Sometimes I confuse the fritters and the rolls. But if you can memorize that, then each of those letters are going to help you. So, you ready? Get some notes. Let's do this. All right, the 7 articles are the plan of government for the United States in our Constitution. As you probably know, but is always a good review, the United States Constitution has 3 parts. A preamble, which starts off with those famous 3 words. What? Famous 3 words? We the people. Yes. Do you remember your Schoolhouse Rock? In order to form a more perfect union. Okay. Go back, look that one up. That's in the preamble. Super important. It's the introduction. It tells why we're doing this. Then we have the 7 articles. This lesson is on the 7 articles. Then we have 27 amendments, which you will have memorized by the end of my class. You're going to know so much about the Constitution. You're going to be able to win arguments with everybody. It's great. All right. Article 1. You ready? Let's put it in your brain. Article 1 sets up the powers of the legislative branch of our government, the lawmakers. It creates the Congress of the United States, okay? So that's Article 1, legislative branch. What powers you're thinking? Well, here's a few list of some. We're going to learn more about these on another day, and for purposes of a quick quiz that you'll have this week, you don't need to know all of these specifics. Just know legislative powers, creates Congress. It says here on the slide, the major powers, the ones that people most remember, these are called enumerated powers. They're in Article 1, Section 8 of the Constitution. Enumerated means they are specifically listed for all to know. So, making laws, we know. Declaring war. Raise and provide public money and oversee its proper expenditures. This sometimes is referred to as the power of the purse, the pocketbook. House of Representatives have this. Whenever we make laws, anything that has to deal with funding or money, it's going to start in the House of Representatives. Also powers impeach and try federal officers. As you may remember, we had a president that was impeached last year. He was impeached in the House. He was acquitted, meaning he was found not guilty in the Senate. All of that power is wrapped up and described in Article 1. Approve presidential appointments. We've probably seen some of that. That includes Supreme Court justices. Our current president has gotten to put, 2 Supreme Court justices on. Approved treaties negotiated by the executive branch. This is like foreign treaties and stuff. And then oversight and investigation. We've had a lot of that in this presidential administration too. A lot of oversight in investigations into actions of the current Trump administration. And only Congress makes federal laws, okay? They're not making laws for us here in Raleigh. They're not making laws for the state of North Carolina. They make federal laws. There's one section. This is where the enumerated powers are, but also at the end of all this, it says Congress has the right to create laws necessary and proper to basically carry out functions of the government. We'll talk more about this later, but the necessary and proper clause, it's a very vague, we sometimes refer to this as the elastic clause because the powers, necessary and proper, well, what does that mean? This could mean a whole lot. So we get back to that, but no, that's in there. Article 2, executive branch. So this part of the Constitution sets up all the powers of the executive branch, okay? This is, of course, going to be our president, cabinet officials, and so on and so forth. The president is in charge of the executive branch. Do we know this by now? I'm not getting rid of that photo. Great artwork. Some of the powers there, major powers of the executive, being able to veto or reject a proposal. That's going to be powers. You're probably very familiar with the veto. Appoint federal posts such as members of the government. Negotiate foreign treaties, which of course part of checks and balances then have to be approved by the legislative branch. Appoint federal judges, also have to be approved by our Senate, checks and balances. Granting pardons or forgiveness for a crime. These are some of the things that the president can do. There are powers specifically denied to the president and the legislative branch in both of those articles too, which we learn about on another day. All right, so we got Article 1 is legislative, Article 2 is executive. Article 3 sets up the judicial branch of the government. Says the Supreme Court is the highest court in all the land. Okay? SCOTUS, as we sometimes call it. Then, underneath, also in Article 3, it sets up what they call inferior courts or lower courts. So you see some structure there. We'll get deeper into this at another time. There's one Supreme Court at the federal level. Underneath that, we have appeals courts, which we talk about what they do, and district courts underneath that. President gets to appoint judges and most of these, and judges serve during good behavior, which basically means for life. So if you're paying attention to your news on a Supreme Court, we have a couple of justices that are getting up there in age. Unless they choose to leave, they're going to be there till they die. 1, 2, 3. L-E-J. Let's eat jelly. Remember my acronym? Article 4. Let's eat jelly fritters. What's that F for? Full faith and credit clause. Article 4 tells how the states relate to each other and to the federal government. They call this the full faith and credit clause, and if you read the text of this, you'll see the specifics to that. But really, here's what it means. By example, it means that states have to respect the laws of other states. If you get married in North Carolina and then you decide to go live in South Carolina can't say, well, you're not technically married here because you didn't do it under our state law. They will respect the laws of the other state. If you commit a crime in one state, you don't get to say, well, in the state I came from, there was barely any punishment for that. Nope, it's not going to work that way. You're now in that state, so you'll be treated under those state laws. It also talks about how states could be admitted to the Union, which of course we haven't done that in a long time, and also contains information about extradition process for fugitives. So if you're going to commit some kind of crime, which I know you're not, and you're going to scoot across state lines, it talks about how states have to handle that with other states. So full faith and credit clause, think of that as the relationships between the states and also really the relationship between the federal government as well. There's a lot of things the federal government allow for the states to do because of this. Article 5 talks about how the Constitution may be amended. You know, we have 27 amendments. Haven't had one recently. These have happened over time. They're pretty difficult to get across, but all Article 5 talks about is what this process is. You can see in the slide here, there's a couple of ways this could happen. Proposal by 2/3 of a vote of both houses of Congress. That's the proposal. So if we want to say we're going to amend the Constitution to say that 16-year-old gets the right to vote, you got to get 2/3 of both houses of Congress to be able to propose this. Then you see it goes into the green area here, which I got to get my glasses because it's getting small, to get ratification, passage by 3/4 of state legislators, or passage by 3/4 of state conventions. Okay, so again, we'll look at a little process on this when we get into the 27 amendments. But the 2/3 to propose in a couple of different ways, the 3/4 to ratify it. It's a difficult process. It does not happen very often. And then finally, Article 6, not finally, almost, Article 6 says the Constitution is the supreme law of the land and that the federal government reigns supreme. They call this the Supremacy Clause, and you can see from our little ladder there of laws, Constitution is the law of the land. Everything comes down from that Constitution. So federal laws and treaties, they're at the top, then state constitutions, then state laws, and then local laws, okay? If two laws conflict, how do we know which is the right law? That correct law is whatever the federal law is. You might remember from your history, there's some early on Supreme Court cases, the Gibbons versus Ogden Supreme Court case that talked about which license takes precedent, a federal license or a state license. Well, through a lot of Supreme Court rulings, we now know that federal laws take precedence. There's some weird loopholes to this. When we start looking at things like drug laws in this country, things get really weird. We have federal laws that ban marijuana from being sold in the United States, but yet states actually have passed laws to legalize it. So go figure that one. States have passed these laws. They're in violation of the federal drug laws. How does this work? On another day, we'll talk more about that little riddle. And also in Article 6, there's mention there public officials have to take an oath to support the Constitution. They cannot take religious tests, but they do have to take an oath to support the Constitution. Also authorizes Congress to borrow money for the national debt, which seems like not that big of a deal, but it's actually pretty big. Finally, Article 7. Article 7 says the Constitution will become the law of the land when 9 of the 13 states ratify this. This is all getting written in 1787. So the ratification, the official signing of it, is going to take place there. All 13 states ratified the Constitution between 1787 and 1790. Fun fact, Delaware was the first state to ratify the Constitution. Rhode Island was the last. So if you're getting cash cab someday, you'll know that. Okay, so Article 7 is about ratification. So now we go back to my acronym. How do I remember this, Miss Thrower? Let's eat jelly fritters and sugar rolls. Let's is legislative. Eat is executive. Jelly is judicial. Fritters, full faith and credit clause. And amendments. Sugar rolls, sugar supremacy. Rolls, ratification. See how easy that is? All you got to do now is remember the acronym. All that other stuff is going to come right to you. All right, you guys, get prepared. Start your memorizing. Bye.